Welcome back. Democrats are fired up over the latest vacancy in the Supreme Court, but how can they channel that anger into something productive? Joining me now is Ben Wickler. He's the Washington director of MoveOn.org. Ben, welcome back.
Thanks for the chance to be here.
So as I outlined at the top, it seems like Democrats fall into three camps here, right? You got the leadership just looking for a way to keep the party united, and Chuck Schumer, and saying just going for delay. You've got the moderates looking out for themselves and their own reelection, which understandable, the politicians do. And then the activist base, they feel as if, oh, you're right, oh my God, look what they did to Merrick Garland, I can't believe this. They want to do something, but there's really nothing Democrats can do, and yet I take it you'd like to see them do something. What is that something?
So there is something Democrats can do. And that thing is using the moral force of arguments about what a fifth hyper-conservative on the Supreme Court will do to actual human lives, will do to women's reproductive freedom, criminalizing abortion, will do to our healthcare system, shredding government protections for people with pre-existing conditions, will do to the freedom to marry who you love. Those are the things that people understand in their own lives. And if we bring it back, not the procedural arguments, not the kind of political arguments, if we bring it back always to how it's going to actually affect people's freedom and life or death right now. That's the kind of moral argument that, if made with the kind of energy we had in the healthcare fight, that's our best shot at actually winning this.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And this is going to, why is it that your side of the aisle, progressives, don't unify in the judge issue the way conservatives decided this was a hill to die on about 25 years ago, and they built a fortress to basically to fight these fights in the judiciary branch. The progressive movement seems to get upset about the court after the fact, never before the fact. Why is that?
So historically, it's been sort of like anti-war movements, which tend to get going after the war begins.
Right.
That's been a problem. I think this time is going to be different. Because this time it's very clear that the fifth vote on Roe versus Wade, the fifth vote on marriage equality, the fifth vote on the gains that have been made, and crucial things that people sort of expect to be part of their lives, that's now at stake. That's in danger. And we haven't had a vote that shifted the balance of power in the court in the same way until now. There's this powerful psychology of loss aversion. People really, really fight to avoid losing something that they've counted on. And right now, suddenly, that's what's on the table here. That's why I think
what was the mistake, in hindsight, what was the mistake you think Democrats did in 16 with this seat? Do you think that Senate Democrats, President Obama, in hindsight, what was the mistake?
I think the fundamental thing in 16 was, there was a very high-minded argument for a nominee like Merrick Garland, and he's a wonderful guy and jurist by all accounts. He was not a nominee that fired up grassroots activists.
Why?
But with the vision.
Because he was a white guy?
He was both a white guy and an older white guy, and also a person with a track record of the most measured, careful opinions, not somebody who was championing.
What you're saying is don't be a radical moderate?
I'm saying if you want people to, wake up in the morning and think, how do I get that guy in the court? You got to put someone up who champions a vision of justice that people deeply believe in, that they can see how it would play out in their own lives. And I think that's, on the right, they're very conscious.
When have the Democrats ever done that for a Supreme Court nominee, though?
That's a great question. I think that speaks to the exact
challenge. They love Ruth Bader
here.
Ginsburg now.
Right.
Okay, honestly, I don't remember a groundswell. I covered that. That was one of my early years. Stephen Breyer was a second choice of Bill Clinton's, I think. At the time, there wasn't the same thing. When have Democrats ever gotten excited about a court pick?
So I think there's a noble, high-minded view of the kind of classical idea of how courts work that has reigned on the left, among Democrats for, maybe the last century. And it hasn't caught up to the reality that on the right, there's a very clear instrumental view of the courts as an instrument of partisan warfare and as an extension of the conservative movement. There's a whole apparatus that's built around this idea that the courts can be where they win.
Do you think the left's problem is they don't accept that premise, that the courts are also a partisan playground? That basically the Republicans decided, now we're going to make it a partisan. We're going to fight it as a partisan warfare. There are liberals on the courts, so let's get conservatives on the courts. Let's have at it. And Democrats are stuck in the idea that, no, the judiciary is supposed to be the umpire.
I think we are now in a moment where it is clear that the war has been declared, whether Democrats like it or not. And this is the time that we need to fight that war. I think that shift has come, and I think you saw that war being declared with what they did to Merrick Garland, and you're going to see it now with a pre-approved, pre-vetted list of anti-Roe conservatives that Trump has promised to appoint from. At this point, the writing's on the wall, and while there were some stumbles out of the gate, I think you're going to see a moral argument put forward and a level of activism in this judicial nomination that is very different from court fights in the past.
So what does that mean? Is that just in how questions are asked by the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee during the confirmation hearings, or is this about coat hangers to Susan Collins, which I notice is now a hashtag on the internet?
I think it's most of all going to be about constituents in Alaska and in Maine, and frankly in states with Democrats and anyone who might be on the fence.
So you're going to target the 3 Democrats we saw at the White House, and any other waivers potentially, and then you're going to target those 2 Republicans?
I think certainly any Democrat, and absolutely those 2 Republicans. I also think, frankly, Corker and Flake have to answer for this question of, do you want the president to appoint someone who will cast the 5th vote that the president can pardon himself? Like, do you want somebody who's ready to carry the president's water? But the grassroots pressure, people have so much pent up both fear and also just outrage about what could happen to them.
I hear you,
but that's going to channel itself into grassroots pressure everywhere that senators, every time they speak, everywhere they go.
But as you know, it seems as if progressives have 20 fights they want to have right now. And is that part of the problem, concentrating on one fight rather than 20?
The weird thing about the Trump era is that in the past, it was always like, which place do we focus? Now there is plenty of energy to go around. And this
so
is
you're saying fight all 20 fights.
I think tomorrow there will be a march with hundreds of thousands of people across the country.
This is on the immigration and the migration.
Immigration. The people who are at that march on Monday will pick up the phone and call both of their senators and demand that they, get ready to reject an extremist Supreme Court judge. People are, and then the next day they're going to be knocking on doors.
By the way, you're already judging an extremist judge. We don't know who the nominee is going to be.
What we know is that there's a list of people who were selected because they are on board.
But in fairness, we don't know that yet.
If he nominates Merrick Garland, I will come right back on your show and say, look, he's finally correcting this historic injustice.
All right.
I didn't think
there
I
it
would support the president.
Move on will help get Merrick Garland confirmed if he's President Trump's nominee. Happy Friday, Ben Wickler.
Thanks so much.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.